All right, good afternoon, everybody. It's Jay again, and I wanted to go over a plant and fruit tree here that I get a lot of questions on. I get a lot of questions on this plant and why does it not fruit for them in Phoenix. And I'll tell you, there's just a few tips to get this thing to fruit here. And it's a wonderful fruit. So it's called a Feijoa, or it's also called a pineapple guava. And it is an evergreen, so this is definitely one that you want to add to your yard if you're wanting green all year long. And it's got a really beautiful leaf, so it's got like a really dark top surface that's very stiff. It's almost like cardboard. They feel very, very stiff. And then if you look underneath the bottom side of the leaf, it's kind of like a gray, kind of like a light silver gray, which very much matches the fruit. So when you're looking at it from the back, it really doesn't look like it's got much fruit on it. It really kind of hides the fruit. But if you come around here to the front, you can see them all here. And it's got quite a few. Bunch up there. Bunch up there. And I think one of these is ready. So I'm going to go ahead and pick one of these. Now, there are many varieties of pineapple guava also. That's one thing I wanted to go over. Let's see if I can get this in focus. So there are many varieties of pineapple guava, and there's a Nabmetz, there's a Coolidge, there's a Mammoth. There's many varieties of these, and some of them have very smooth skin, like this one, and some of them are kind of more shaped like an almond, and they're a little bit rougher as far as like the texture. And then you've got some big and you've got some small. This is a round, smooth skin, and this is a wonderful fruit. And you can see that this one's a little bit larger now. It's probably maybe 2 or 3 feet above my head. It's a very slow growing bush slash tree. This thing only really grows about twice a year, maybe 3 times a year if you're lucky. But one good thing about it is it likes the cold. So the cold weather won't bother this guava, whereas it kills off all of your normal type guavas. I mean, this isn't an actual true guava. So let's just call this one a Feijoa, but this is a beautiful, beautiful plant. So these like a little bit of food. They like some compost. They do need fed if you expect food back from the tree. So if you're having difficulties getting them to fruit, it's probably either a food issue, you're not feeding the tree, it's not getting enough water, it needs a lot of irrigation in the summertime, not so much in the wintertime. It's got a really rough bark. See if I can zoom in on the bark here. So it's very, very well adapted for Arizona. And this one is an actual tree. So you see this one I've got as a single trunk tree. So it's got a nice trunk that comes up, and then it's got a nice branch system that goes up and out into the sun. And this gets a fair amount of sun. This gets probably 6 to 8 hours. So they do need some light to fruit. A lot of people plant these in the shade because they burn them up because they don't give them enough water, and then they don't get fruit on them ever because they're planted in the shade. So if you want one of these to fruit, you're going to have to actually give it a little sun. But the caveat is to get it established. And to get it established, you're going to need to give it a fair amount of water to get it going. So I've got a couple of these on the property. This is probably the biggest one. And this one's planted right next to, if you want to kind of know what it's near, there's a star fruit right here. Above me is an apricot. And I've got a mango behind it. And then I've got some other plants just kind of tucked around it. We've got a dragon fruit here. And of course it's nice and cool in here, but let's go look at one that's got a little worse scenario, because this one's probably got the best scenario. Okay, so this one's actually planted by the house, real close to the house, and you can see this one's kind of reaching out into the sun. This one doesn't get a lot of sun except midsummer, and then it gets a lot of overhead sun. So this one's not quite old enough to fruit. So that's one thing I forgot to mention, and is really the most important part of a pineapple guava, is it needs some age, it needs some maturity. I found that these things don't fruit till they're about 7 years old, and then they start putting on fruit. And they don't need a pollinator. They're all self-fertile as far as I can tell, because they're all planted in different spots. And actually this one has fruited before. This one just didn't fruit this year. I've got a video of this one, an older one, when it did fruit. But you can see this one, the leaves are a lot larger. They're a lot softer, more supple, bigger, softer. Doesn't have that full sun it needs to contend with, so it doesn't have to put on that stiff cardboard leaf. And they're very, very soft and very green, a much different color than the ones that are out in the full sun all the time. Wow, this thing's got some really big leaves. Nice leaves on this one. So this one's about the height of me. And then if we go out here on the driveway, got this one, and you can see that this is full afternoon sun. So once the sun, especially in the summertime, hits a certain point, it's going to be all day afternoon sun. And this one's doing pretty good too, considering this one's getting pretty big too. Now it did get a little bit beat up there at the top, but I would say that to get just full afternoon sun all the time, this one looks pretty good. Now they do need a little bit of a break. I did notice on this one that the flowers this year were cooking and drying up before they were setting. So on this one, this year, I don't have it up right now, but this year I had a shade cloth up to give it a little bit of a break so that this one can fruit next year. So you saw that the first one that I had there was almost in perfect scenario, I guess, for planting a feo or a pineapple guava. Is you want to give it like morning sun, let's say 6 to 8 hours. Clipped off in the afternoon is ideal. Will they grow in the afternoon sun? Yes, but they won't fruit as well. Will they grow in the shade? Yes, but they won't fruit as well. So you kind of want to give them that kind of that midday. They're going to have different types of leaf depending on where you grow them, whether they get shade or not, or whether it's got fall leaves like this one has, versus some of the summer leaves, which you see are right above it here. And they're a different texture, and they're smaller, and they're kind of cooked, and they're just not that happy. And then the cool weather comes out, and you got these nice, beautiful leaves again. So This is a cooler weather guava. They do enjoy that cooler weather versus the summer. To get good fruit, give them that morning to mid-afternoon sun. Give them lots of irrigation to get them started. It may seem like you're overwatering them at first, but you need to just kind of pound the water in to them to get them established, especially if you plan on planting these kind of in the middle of the summer or in the full sun. I mean, they don't really like the full sun. They just like a little bit of a break. Like I said, lots of water at first, and then you can start to cut it back. You want to increase the water when you see flowers so that it'll actually set those fruit and you won't lose those fruit. Or you can put a little bit of shade cloth up if you see it starting to burn. And you don't need more than one variety. You saw that one over there all by itself was completely full of fruit, and I did not hand pollinate them. They need to be a little bit older. So if you can get your hands on one of these larger trees, they'll start fruiting immediately for you. Otherwise, you'll be waiting on them. They're a Feijoa. They're not a true guava. They taste like a guava mixed with pineapple. I mean, that's why they were named that, I guess, is the best description for them. They've got nice tough bark, but only if they've got some nice foliage to cover them. Otherwise, they're going to start to defoliate and cook, and then even that tough bark will start to burn. You got to feed them. I'm sorry, but that's one thing people are tired of hearing. But you feed yourself, and you need to feed the trees. So if you want good food good food from them, you need to feed them also. So get them on some sort of a feeding regimen, whether it be your compost tea or earthworm castings or compost, or granulated, or whatever you choose to do. Just do some type of feeding. Realize that it's necessary, especially if you have a plant that needs a lot of the micronutrients. They do struggle a little bit in the summertime to pick up some of those nutrients, whereas when it cools down, they're a lot better adapted to pick up those nutrients. But you do need to feed them. So feed them and water them and give them afternoon shade and give them some time. And you don't have to have a whole bunch of these to get fruit. It helps. Now you'll get more fruit if you've got two of these. You got one of these next to another one. I've got a client that has two of these planted right next to each other, basically, and they are just full of fruit, like pouring with fruit. So I do know that having two will indeed pollinate them. And the two that she has are two different varieties. They're not the same variety. So that may also help too. So, all right, guys, that's been my experience with pineapple guavas or Feijoas. Just give them some time. They're a beautiful evergreen, and they enjoy the winter when a lot of other things are sticks. So if you add these to your collection, you will have some greenery during the winter right now when everything else is kind of going dormant and losing its leaves. All right, guys, thank you for watching.